Okay, we're gonna call this meeting to order. Item number 1, item number 2, consider approval of the minutes for the March 14th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and take any action necessary. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion for that.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, number 3, item number 3, Z-2023-02. Hold a public hearing to discuss and consider a request from Jeffrey Turner, applicant owner of the Turner Renee Surratt Estate, for the approval of a zoning change from FD Future Development District to MF Multiple Family District, and amending the future land use plan of the Mount Pleasant 2050 comprehensive plan for 33.839 acre second tract described in a deed to Jeffrey E. Turner recorded in file number 202300128, Titus County Official Public Records, TCOPR, being shown graphically on a plat of a survey by Titus County Official Records, survey by MTX Surveying, and being more particularly described as follows, to wit: bearing basis SPC, Texas North Central 4202, NAD 83, grid, Titus County, Texas, City of Mount Pleasant, Texas, and addressed as 874 Neville's Road, County Road 1605, and take any action necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. If we go to the zoning map, or location map, this is the property. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with. This is on the southwest corner of Neville's Road and Harts Bluff Road, and it's the area that you can see here in the green. It's a 33-acre tract, and a little bit extra. And the applicant, as you've indicated, is coming forward to request a zoning change from future development district to a multifamily district. And how we're here, how did we get here? So in December of last year, the applicant did come forward to the city council, requested a resolution for through the Department of Housing and Community Affairs for a competitive tax credit program for affordable rental housing, essentially. And during that process, it's a competitive bid process, and part of the application process is to get things in order, I guess, so to speak. And so zoning is the first order of business. Before any development can happen, the property has to be zoned appropriately. And so that's the purpose of this meeting tonight, is to make sure that we have the proper zoning before any development can happen to that property. And so during the application process, the applicant did provide a concept plan, as you can see here. What he's proposing, should the zoning be approved, would be 3 buildings, the 3-story buildings. They have 24 apartment units in each building, so it's a total of 72 buildings, or 72 apartment units for this particular tract. And it's on a 10-acre portion of the 33-acre tract. So this is the remainder, all of the remainder tract here, and this is 10-acre portion. The applicant also, at the time of the resolution, which was passed by council December 6th, provided a color rendering of what this would look like should this go through as well. And so you can see the amenities that are associated with this, and of course the building structures. The zoning of the property currently, as you see here, one thing I do want to mention is that zoning is about land use, and so that is the purpose of the request, is to change the land use about this. And so the one thing that staff has to do is take a look at our comprehensive plan, the future land use plan, to see how does that align with what the applicant is requesting for zoning. In this case, if we take a look at the zoning on this property, this is the subject property. Everything here in green is what we call future development district. One thing you'll note here as well is that south of the property are single-family homes, single-family residential district zoning as well. So there are existing homes here already. There are vacant tracts of land available to be developed into single-family homes here. You do have an unincorporated area here. Obviously, this is outside of the city limits, but this area also has single-family homes that are located here as well. You do have the Stonebriar, Silver Creek, I believe, and the Woodlands that are established subdivisions up in this area as well. You may be asking, well, that's in Green's future development. Well, this wasn't zoned, but it allowed, future development allows for single-family housing. So the zoning allows for this to be here as is. And then to the west, southwest, you have single family, and all the way out this way, you have single family as well. Couple of spots here that do have multifamily, this is a 9-acre tract here, and these 3 small tracts, these are like 1 acre each. These are all vacant. All 3 of these are vacant. You do have the senior community, off of Community Drive, a senior facility here as well. And so the thing that we need to take a look at, so we have zoning, it's about land use. The comprehensive plan, though, that's a guide. That's really the policy document for the city. The city takes a look at this to say, okay, this is what we would like to achieve by the year 2050. So it's the Mount Pleasant 2050 Comprehensive Guide. And it was something that was approved last summer. Had citizen involvement and stakeholders, other stakeholders as well, and it was approved by City Council as a vision for what the city is to look like by the year 2050. And so when we take a look at this property, when we go to the future land use plan now, the subject property that you see here, when you see all of Mount Pleasant, this is the entire future land use plan, and how we take a look at development to see what the patterns are and how we want to see how that develops out. In this area right here, the subject property, all this in yellow here is single family. So essentially everything north of I-30 is primarily single family. It's what it's looking for as far as the comprehensive plan. You take a look at the south here, of course you've got industrial, you have commercial, you have general retail, you have the assortment of uses that are associated here. But also here, this is referred to as compact residential for this tract, and this being the subject property here. It is considered compact residential by the comprehensive plan. What that means is that it's looking for small lot development. Small lot, like single family detached housing, patio homes, townhomes, duplexes could be located there as well. And so when we take a look at that, the zoning, if it were to change, we'd have to make a change to the comprehensive plan here for this 33-acre portion. And when we take a look at that from the comprehensive plan, since it doesn't allow for a multifamily use within the comprehensive plan, we have to take a look, what is the place type for a multifamily use? That would be what we call a mixed use center. Now, a mixed use center is going to be more of a live work. Well, we all want to live, work, and play in our area, but a mixed use center really is about intensity of uses. It's about what we call nodes of activity, where you have more traffic, you have more activity going on, you have more businesses, and something along that line would be something like over here where we have, this is what we call mixed use center here. And so you're looking at a mix of uses where you have residential and some commercial that are mixed within that. Multifamily, from a zoning perspective, it's about your adjacencies and what your uses are. So multifamily, yes, can it be next to residential? Of course. It acts as a buffer, or what we call a transition of uses. And what that transition means is what activity, what do you have that this is transitioning from? Transition would be from a multifamily to a commercial type use, general retail, commercial, to kind of buffer the residential from the higher intensity type of uses that would be associated with a transition of uses. So when we take a look at this, we've got to take a look at, is there a transition of uses? Once again, as I've indicated, from our location map, from our zoning map, you have single family here, you have single family here, you have single family here as well, and you have single family all right along in here. You have a couple of tracts here that are vacant. They have availability for single family. There's not a transition of uses. If you take a look at it from a zoning perspective. So the other thing to consider as well is when you take a look at the zoning for a multifamily, if this were to be approved for zoning, then what are we looking at as far as uses? Okay, once again, this is a competitive bid, and Mr. Martin, I believe, who's representing the applicant, can speak a little more about what the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs requires as far as their application and if they win this bid and what would happen. But if they don't win the bid, if the zoning is changed and they don't win the bid, then you have to take a look at, well, if this is zone multifamily, what can go there? The uses that are associated there are business, office. You can have churches there. You can have hospitals. You can have nursing homes. You can have public schools, private schools. There's a host of uses that are higher intense uses as well that would be that could be located here if he didn't win the bid, if the zoning is approved and he didn't win the bid. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. So once again, when we take a look at this, if this were to be approved, then the designation for this would have to change from compact residential right here to what it is now to a mixed use center. And with that being said, with the changes to that, staff would take a look at the 2050 Mount Pleasant Comprehensive Plan, and based on the information that we have from the applicant and changing to a multifamily, staff would recommend denial of the case. We have received 39 notices from property owners from all of the area that you see here, primarily up in here as well. The other item of interest here would be the amount of notices that we receive in what we call a 200-foot notice area, the primary notices that go out. Any notice that comes in obviously is going to be reviewed, and I have all the notices here, and you have the additional notices that we provide in your packet as well. And so staff has to take a look at this as well and to see if it meets a certain threshold that's established by state statute, and that is when you send out notices to the all property owners within 200 feet, if it reaches what we call a 20% opposition, a written notice for protest, and it reaches 20% of the property owners within the 200-foot area, then it's going to require a 3/4 majority vote for approval, and that would be on council. It's in our because it's the governing body, but whatever you decide you want to do, the recommendation would be forwarded to city council. The city council ultimately have to take a look at this, and for this to be approved, it would have to be approved by a super majority vote, 3/4 majority vote. With that, the applicant is here to answer any questions. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have regarding the zoning request change, and this is a public hearing.
Okay, does the applicant want to come speak?
I have kind of a prepared statement for you, and then I can answer other questions, but this plan is for a 9% tax credit in TDHCA's Region 4 rural area. The application for the tax credit in this region is a competition between 17 counties. 2010 median household income for our region was $54,097. There are currently 7,081 affordable rental housing units in our region with 98.5% occupancy and long waiting lists. The total rental housing gap in Titus County is 749. We have around 700 people on our housing authority waiting list with an average wait time between 2 and 3 years for us to house them. Our plan would provide 72 units of low-income housing. The income range for low income is currently between $38,150 and $71,900, depending on the number of persons housed. This is not to be confused with extremely low income and very low income, which are other threshold limits that are much lower than low income for their participation. For example, a married couple with a single income and one child would qualify, making up to $49,050 a year. Well, just so you kind of get that in your mind, a starting teacher pay is currently $45,600 in the school district where the property is located. So you're talking about teachers, policemen, firemen, that all would qualify for this housing. The plan includes a walking trail, a playground, a clubhouse, and a swimming pool. The housing complex will also provide free Wi-Fi for residents in what we consider a beautiful community. I live in that community myself. The reserve at Neville's is currently number 2 in the region's submissions. The 9% tax credit is highly competitive and points driven. So at the present time, we are behind Marshall and tied with another submission here in Mount Pleasant. And reserve at Neville's has the tiebreaker between the 2 Mount Pleasant submissions. So as I said, it's very competitive. We've been trying for 8 years to get one of these submissions through in Mount Pleasant. We've always, and even with this one, had city council approval that they liked what we're trying to do. And with all the others, last year we lost out by 1 point to Paris. As I said, it's 17 counties. It stretches from just north of Tyler all the way up to Longview Marshall, all the way over to Texarkana, back to Paris, and back to Sulphur Springs. So it is a huge region, and we are competing with a bunch of people every time we put one of these submissions out there. Some of the questions that I've heard in the last few weeks is, why do we choose that particular property? Well, our divisions, the folks that we work with, they have software that can figure out the points and what areas will score best. Well, right now in Mount Pleasant, and for the last few years, the very best scoring property in Mount Pleasant is where my housing authority sits right now. So I can't build something new there under the current rules. So we have to look for somewhere else to build. And what they do is this software presents to them the areas in our county and specifically within the city limits that score the best points so that we have the best chance of winning in our region. And like I said, the last 2 years, last year and this year, we're neck and neck. Marshall, they are trying for some historical points that they may or may not get. So what could happen here is if they do not get their historical points, they will lose their bid and it will go to one of the Mount Pleasant bids. So what you're really looking at then is it us or the other Mount Pleasant bid. The other Mount Pleasant bid is right down the street from us. It just happens to already be zoned commercial. So if you aren't aware with it, it is right on the edge of the I-30 and 1402, right beside the family clinic there. It's 5 acres that previously owned by the Blaylocks and now owned by Ricky Baker. So that's where the other property is. Yes, it is already zoned commercial, so if they get it, they would get it. And again, this is if Marshall fails to get their historical points. But what we are asking for is to have that zone changed so it's an even playing field. The simple fact of it is, whenever these get built, if it's ours, we get 72 units of housing. If it's the other one, it's only 54 units. So it's a lot less units that would be able to house folks if we end up having the other one. End of the day, I'm working for housing to get more housing in Mount Pleasant. I don't really care where it is, to be honest with you. It doesn't bother me where it goes. I want more housing in Mount Pleasant. We've had some projects go up in Mount Pleasant over behind Tractor Supply in that area. Those have helped. But I'm telling you, we still have 700 people on my wait list. I have homeless people that I have to turn away every day. We need housing. It can be our project or it can be another one. And if Marshall wins this year, yes, we will put in another application next year. It probably won't be the same place. I've done this 8 times and we haven't picked the same place any of the times because it's always driven by the points. Some of the points come from grocery stores being nearby, fire department being nearby, hospitals being nearby, jobs being nearby. Those are the kind of things that get us points. The school districts a lot of times play a big role in the points. So, and it changes every year. So we don't know from one year to the next what THCA is going to say the rules are for these points. So if we don't get this one this year, we'll try again. I'm not stopping trying because that's what we're here to do. As a housing authority, which I represent, we are trying to house people. The fact that some of them are considered low income, I know some people were stressing about that. I understand that. I've just pointed out the low income level here is not the same as my housing authority. And I would challenge anybody to point out where my housing authority is in town, because a lot of you wouldn't even know where it is because it doesn't look like a housing authority. It looks like a gated community. And that's what we're going for with this. This project will not look like any of the other apartment buildings in Mount Pleasant. It'll look more like something you would see out of the Metroplex as a very well-organized small community in and of itself. Just one other thing I'd point out, it just comes to my mind, you can take it for what it's worth. Whenever the Housing Authority was built in 1969, and some of you were around for that. I was not. I wasn't born until 1970. But when the Housing Authority was built in 1969, there was almost nothing south of there. All of the things that are out there now, your grocery stores, your CVS, your Walgreens, your Walmart, all those came after the Housing Authority. Why? Because it put a concentrated number of jobs or workers available to do jobs. One of the things that I live out there, you know, this is my community too, where we're looking at building this. We're always wanting, and folks in the room, you know, we're always talking about, we need a grocery store on north end of town. We need this or that on north end of town, right? That's always been said. That won't happen until there's a concentrated population for them to draw workers from, just like it did when we built the Housing Authority. So I'm open to any other questions. We are seeking this zone change to go forward in the event that the reserve at Neville's is selected, because without the zone change, if we do get selected, it will automatically revert to the other property here in Mount Pleasant. Now, that's all said with TDHCA's approval. So that's all I've got to present to you, but I am available for any questions.
So is that the only property y'all looked at as far as?
No, sir. There were several properties out in the area that we've looked at, and some the owners told us to go away, and some you know, just aren't interested in selling right now. It just depends on the owner. The owner of this property is willing to sell, and that's what we're looking at. One thing to point out, I know the map showed the entire 33 acres being changed as far as the zone. We can't help what zoning has to do with that, but all we're interested in is the 10 acres where we're gonna build. The developer's intention with the other 23 acres, if we get approved and get built there, the other 23 acres they're gonna sell. They're gonna turn around and sell it on the open market to whoever wants it for whatever purposes they wanna use or zone it for or whatever. There's no second apartment complex gonna be built. There's nothing in our plans with them or their plans on their own to do anything other than sell the remaining 23 acres. So they can put cows on it if they want to.
Right, but it'd be zone multifamily.
Yes, sir. Again, because of the nature of the way zoning and things work, we have to contract the entire property. And as for the zone change for the entire property, we can't single out the 10 acres. The property owner is interested in selling his entire property, not just 10 acres. So therefore, we have to ask for a zone change for the entirety of it, even knowing that we don't have any intentions of using the rest of it for that purpose.
Okay, anybody got any questions? Mr. Martin?
I have a couple of questions and concern. Number one, you described a pretty sophisticated computer system that had a search pattern for property available. My suggestion for you is the next time you search, the very first item you put in is compatible with the 2050 comprehensive plan. That would eliminate all of this guesswork and obviously a lot of work on y'all's part, but it doesn't fit the plan. Now I understand that the plan's not cast in stone, but I'm relying on the previous staffs, councils, zoning commissions that put it together, that's what they thought was best for Mount Pleasant. And so I'm concerned about why you couldn't find another piece of property that was already zoned and it was compatible.
Well, they completed and submitted their comprehensive plan in June. We start these plans the year before. I mean, we started looking and planning for this in the December before last June. So in December of 21, we had no idea what their comprehensive plan was at that time. I mean, obviously now we can look at that and, yes, good advice, but it wouldn't have helped us when we started looking, when we did. And their plans, this proposal does ask for a change in that plan as well. That's something that you all have to consider. I understand, your position, and we understand what your thoughts are there, but eventually, even those other things that are currently single family may change to something else as well. It just depends on how things go, and we don't know that. If ours is approved, you may see more and more of that looking to be changed, and honestly, I think that would be a good thing to open up some of that so we can start to see some of these other businesses that we'd like to have on the north end of town actually be out there. I don't know if anybody likes driving 20 minutes across town to get to Walmart, but that's, yeah.
Well, my question would be to the city, when was the 2050 zoning plan or comprehensive plan, when was that implemented and what went into that? How much research, how much desire to move a business to the north side of town, how much commercial property was left available? I'm unfortunately a rather new member to the board, and I don't know much about the comprehensive plan, but just looking at the title tells me it was to some degree well thought out and planned for a situation like this. So tell me a little bit about this comprehensive plan
Yes, sir. Thank you, and that's a good question. And so some cities refer to this as a master plan, and so it's kind of the same thing. It's a comprehensive plan. There's a lot that goes on with this. I was not involved with this comprehensive plan, but the comprehensive plan that I've been involved with in the past have taken up to a year and a half, 2 years. This, I believe, was in the same case that they were looking at it for probably about a year and a half. They did have Kimberly Horn, who was the consultant, look at this as well. You do have engagement with the citizens. Like I said, you have stakeholders as well. There were public hearings, public meetings that are associated with this to take a look to see exactly how this is developed. And essentially what you do with the comprehensive plan, once you put the plan in place, then the next step is to take a look at your zoning as well to see how your zoning is compatible with the comprehensive plan. So there are some areas there that were reviewed at that point as well also. And so that is something that we're also looking at now, is updating our zoning code, and that'll come later on this year as well. But as far as the comprehensive plan, it's very, very, I guess, busy work, I guess is the easiest way to say that. But there is a lot of elements involved with that. You take a look at fiscal responsibility with that. You take a look at your water, your sewer. How does that align with cities, in the future as well? You take a look at other impacts that are associated with the city as a whole. The master thoroughfare plan is part of that as well too. So not only future land use, master thoroughfare. I mean, you have quite a bit of information that is associated with that. And so it like once again I said, it guides development, and it helps the staff to visit with developers whenever something comes in, to sit down and say, hey, yeah, we want to take a look at this. Well, looking at what we have here, can we do A, B, C? And what is it going to take to get there? So it's a very helpful tool in providing guidance and moving forward with zoning. Hope that answers the question. Trying to be as brief as I can on that.
Yeah, that helps.
During that time that the city was going through this plan and looking at everything, they decided that area needed to be zoned the way it is now because of the sewer, water, and everything else. They didn't want to change it at that time, right?
And once again, I wasn't associated with the plan on this part of this, but when you take a look at what has developed there, and what could develop is essentially I think what your question is. Development is already single family in that area. Future development, let me kind of explain. I didn't explain future development. When annexation occurs, and you'll see on the map. So when annexation occurs, you take a look to see what areas that you have and how those could be zoned. Future development is a holdover zone, and so I know when we took a look at this from the zoning map, here we go, from the zoning map, you saw a lot of green in here, and that is a holdover zone from the time that it is annexed in. Now, generally speaking, we don't really do a whole lot of annexations anymore. The state has kind of slowed that down. But when this was annexed in at some time, it was zoned automatically future development. And what that means is whenever it's ready to zone, then that's when you come back and you can rezone it to whatever that is. So when they take a look at a future land use plan or the comp plan, they have to take a look at all these areas where that future development exists to see what is it, how is that going to look, what type of intersection do we have nodes of activity or commercial areas that need to be addressed. And so there's a lot of information that goes into that in order to develop a plan. And then also, what do the citizens want? And that's very important in developing that plan. So when we take a look once again at the zoning kind of aligns with your comprehensive plan, and so that's really what we're trying to get at here, just to make sure that we meet what the comprehensive plan is according to the zoning as well.
I guess, yeah, I mean, you brought utilities and water and that kind of stuff, and I guess that's kind of my main concern is the road system there, can it handle what is being proposed? Can the utilities handle it? Can the water handle it? Can everything handle? And I'm not sure, if they already did a big comprehensive plan, they already looked at all this stuff, that it's,
Right, so some of those things, when you take a look at zoning, essentially, when you take a look at a traffic impact analysis, I think is what you're referring to in this case, that's a state highway. The state of Texas, if you were to change the zoning on that and develop, and they ask for that permit for entrance, the state is probably gonna wind up doing a traffic impact analysis, see how that would, fare out for that area. And so some of those are some of the things that you take a look at as well whenever you go through zoning. From a comprehensive plan standpoint, no, that's not something that you take a look at. It's considered, but it's because you don't do a traffic impact analysis, but you take a look to see what utilities you have in place, and also what's it going to take in the future, to provide that. What we have there now, I don't know if that's adequate or not. That's something that we go through during the development process to see if there's any upgrades that are needed. In any time that there is development, that's when you actually take a look at that.
Okay, does, Mr. Martin wanna say anything else, or anybody got any questions, any more questions?
Well, I have some other comments that I'd like to make, and one of them was just mentioned, traffic impact study. It is my personal belief that one of the biggest errors ever made in Mount Pleasant was placing the Mount Pleasant High School out here on a farm to market road, and then adding a junior high right behind it. The traffic out there is terrible. I've heard stories that the highway department was never consulted, which that's neither here nor there. It's a little late for that. But there's a school in the proximity of this location. Is that correct? And it is a 2-lane farm to market highway, which means no turning lane. Okay? With the area that's grown in the green, is there a traffic study? I know by personal experience, sometimes in the morning, it's like the Indianapolis 500 out there. Boy, they are coming to town, and I just see some issues there that I think we've made that mistake with the schools. I don't think we ought to jump into it again. I'm assuming the city has traffic studies done all over, all the time. So I would like to see a little more problem solving initially in something like this, and I'm going to give you an example that's terrible. And the whole city's terrible. Houston, Texas is the largest city with no zoning law. Is that correct? That is correct. And I've worked a lot in Houston, and you will drive from a really nice housing addition to a pipe yard. And there ain't nothing wrong with pipe yards, because I had one time. But, that means you can do anything. And Houston's a reflection of that. And it breeds crime, And there are just a number of things here that I think lack pre-planning. And I'll shut up.
I can assure you that staff takes a look at every element when we go through, from the time from zoning to site plan to construction documents to platting to building. We go through everything in that, and we make sure that the development what we have here is quality.
Okay, well, one last thing. This gentleman thinks I'm just against him. I am not. Mount Pleasant needs housing. It needs to be appropriately located to fuel development, whether it be restaurants, grocery stores, or whatever else. But there's just more to it than that.
questions for Mr. Martin? Okay. Would I say some more? Okay.
You know, I would point out, if it stays, that property stays the way it is, the owner of the property can decide to develop it just the same as the ones across the street there at Stonebriar and those. So would it create more or less housing? I don't know. But it's gonna create probably about the same number of houses if you subdivided that 30 acres. You're gonna get over 60 houses. They're only required to need a half acre each. That's 66 houses you could put on that property. So you're still gonna have it there if they chose to develop it that way. So that issue's still gonna be there. The other thing I would point out, if Mount Pleasant is successful, and I'm not talking about us directly, if Mount Pleasant is successful in bringing a 9% in this round of submissions to TDHCA, it's going on that road. It's still going to have the same impact that the one that we're proposing will have. Exactly the same. It's going at the half a mile down the road, and that's it's the same impact of traffic that you're going to have, and same folks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. Would anybody else like to speak?
Hello, gentlemen. My wife and I just moved out here a little over a year ago from California. Please don't hold that against us. We're not the wackos. But listening to what this gentleman over here said, and bless you that you want to do something for homeless people, but I lived it. I was out there. You start with a little bit here, and it grows. And then you end up with crime, heavy crime, gangs. You get drug all over the place. The police will be overwhelmed. I mean, good heart, what you want to do, but I've lived it, and it's not good, and it grows quick. And then at the time, there's nothing you can do, because it's already set in stone. And with the other gentleman, with the road conditions, oh, we'll look at this, we'll look at that. Bless him, he probably will. But he can't guarantee his people will do it. I've seen it where they've done it and said, and the city has said, you cannot do that. It will, California, it will kill whatever bug. They did it. They got fined $5,000. But they did it. You know, I don't want to see it happen out here. We fell in love with Mount Pleasant. And we want to retire out here. We want our family to come out here, not the crazy one. But I thank you guys for hearing me.
Okay, what was your name and address?
Oh, Dwayne Kleinberg, 1202 Silver Road. Yes. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak?
Hi, I'm Paul Seiler. I live at 2716 Stonehenge Street, which is in Stonebriar subdivision, right across the street, right across Neville's Road from the subject property. I would just like to add, I'm not an expert on traffic flow, but if you've been out there, Neville's Road is a 2-lane wide chip and seal road. The road's in good condition, but it already has more traffic than it needs to have. And I promise you, the traffic that's on there now is not doing 30 miles an hour. We add 74 apartments, you're adding 74 or more cars in that 10-acre development. And it's not like the other places in Mount Pleasant. I just, again, I'm not a property planning expert, but this is Google Maps showing where there are apartments in Mount Pleasant, and you'll see they're all off of 30 or south of town, off of 271 or Business Loop 271 with a lot of good traffic access that you don't have where this property is. The other thing, I moved here from the Metroplex 2 years ago to retire, and I am retired. And our subdivision is a nice little subdivision in Mount Pleasant. I like it out there. It's very quiet. And when I learned tonight that there's gonna be 20 acres that could have other kinds of uses besides even apartments, why are we doing that when I also heard there are other locations over by the Harts Bluff Family Care Center where they could put property, and I think you have better road access. So for all of those reasons, I would urge the commission to decide and recommend not approving the zoning change. And again, we're all in favor of everybody needs a place to live, but it's a question of where do you put it? And it looks like our 2015 plan has looked at it, and we've heard tonight that everything around this property is single-family home. And that's where it's headed. I just heard Mr. Martin say if this zoning is not approved, the owner's gonna sell it for single-family home development. That would be a good thing. I'd personally like to see that. So, in conclusion, I just thank you for your time. I'm in opposition of the proposed zoning. I didn't fill out the paperwork because I wanted to come here and talk to you face to face and be one of the residents that live right across Neville's Road from where this is to tell you my concerns as a homeowner. I didn't buy my house with the thought that I would be across the street from apartment buildings, however nice they look, and I just don't think this neighborhood's the best choice for that. I think that's the main reason why it should be denied. I just don't think this is the best location for something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next.
Hold it down the whole time? Okay, so I live right down the road, not right across the street, but I pretty much agree with everything I've heard. But one thing that I have not heard mentioned, I'm an employee at Harts Bluff ISD. I'm not in an admin position. I'm a teacher, so I in no way speak for the school. But one thing I'm not sure if all of y'all are aware of, Harts Bluff has proposed basically an $18 million bond because we're already at capacity. And where they're proposing to put these apartments, it's in our school district. Well, I mean, if that bond doesn't go through, we don't have room. The other property that was proposed is in Mount Pleasant School District. So, I mean, there's a difference there as well. Again, we love all of our kids at Harts Bluff and we'd love to have them all. But right now, as far as I'm aware, we're pretty stacked. And so something like that, bringing in that many children would be pretty tough, especially all at once.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Ma'am, if you could give your name and address for the record, please, and anyone else that speaks, please provide your name and address.
My name is Rick Strudoff, 102 Glen Eagles Drive, but we own property on Neville's Road. I'll say this, the world is filled with good intentions. The intention is to just build 72 units and then sell off the other 23 acres. But once the zoning is changed, that 23 acres can go to more multifamily units. And you'd have all kinds of problems at that point in time. I will say this about the people that are here that live in the area. Most people, when they buy a house, buy a home, It's their largest investment they'll ever make in their lifetime. I've been in the banking business for 55 years. I have never once seen a low-income housing unit raise everyone's property values around them. Nobody that bought their homes in this area anticipated that this was going to happen. You expect that the landscape is going to be the same, the general use of the surrounding area is going to be the same, and you trust your local government leaders to keep it that way. And that's what I'm asking you guys to do. We're against it. We hope you'd vote against it.
Thank you. State your name and address, please.
My name is David Philibrown. I live at 2729 Sleepy Hollow. And so I'm very close to the proposed zoning change, and I took it upon myself, and I see a lot of familiar faces behind me that joined me with a petition to hopefully stop this zoning change. I'll have a very brief paragraph that heads that petition, but it expresses a lot of what I've already heard that needs to be done here. But as property owners, residents, and concerned citizens, we, the undersigned, stand in objection to proposed zoning of 33.839 acre tract of land deeded to Jeffrey E. Turner, recorded in file number 202-30128. For multiple reasons, and you've heard several of them right now, we feel that a multifamily residential designation would be detrimental to the community and in particular to the neighbors of the Hartsbluff School District. I have a copy, if you'd like to have a copy, of about 150 signatures. I spent the last couple of weeks off and on when I had the time going through Stonebriar and Spring Creek, up and down Neville's Road, Hartsbluff Road where relevant. Most everyone here is easily within a quarter of a mile of this proposed zoning change. I would encourage you not only to reject this zoning change, but also to do what you could to change, I guess, the ruling that limited the notification of this change to only 200 feet from the property line of the proposed property. Believe me, the effects of this type of a development are going to reach far beyond that. And as others have said, I moved out there before it was annexed in, and certainly like the peace and quiet at Sleepy Hollow. I don't want that destroyed. Ronnie had a good point about the roads. If you have ever come out our way and tried to turn at Neville's Road off of Hartsbluff Road, be looking in your rearview mirrors, because you may want to take off the brake and put on the gas because people come whipping over that hill. It's hard enough, especially when school is about to start and when it ends, to get out on that road safely. And safety, I think, should be a paramount concern here. I am not certain about the other locations. I'm concerned with this one, and I think this is a poor choice. And for those of us that are opposed to this zoning change, I think that everyone is concerned about everything from property crime to safety, traffic. Those seem to be the main headlines. I had only 2 people of all the people I spoke to that did not want to sign this petition. So I think by far and away that if you see fit to follow the wishes of the community, you'll not recommend, and I realize it's not totally up to you, but we plan to be here next week too.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's,
If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
no,
Okay. Would you like a copy of this, Michael?
okay.
Thank you. My name is Sue French. There's not anything separating us from this. It's a barbed wire fence. Our home is sitting right there. Pardon me?
No, your address.
2523 FM 1402.
FM 1402.
Uh-huh. And we have lived there for 41 years. 41 wonderful years. We have wonderful neighbors that take care of each other. They take care of us from kind of we're old. And we've never had any problems there at all. There is no way that I would ever feel comfortable in my home again if they put something like that right next door to my house. It's just like Mr. Naramore said. When we get something like that into our neighborhood, we get all types of people, and we all know that. And I agree, everyone needs a home. We all need a home. But don't put them out there close to my home that I have worked for 48 years for. And they have mentioned that the traffic. The traffic is just absolutely horrible. And I agree, all of us needs a place to live. We all do. But don't put it out close to where the traffic is. It's already so heavy now. Those children are coming down through there with school buses. Traffic is just horrible. We sit out there on our front porch and watch it. It's as bad as I-30 at any time. And it scares you to death for the people going up and down the road. And I appreciate you gentlemen, what you've done.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'll be brief. My name is Mike Lyde, and I live at 2706 Silver Creek Trail. And I'd just like to echo a lot of the concerns that were spoken tonight. We have, my wife and I, Jennifer, have lived in our home for almost 20 years now. And when we moved into it, we wanted to move to a nice, quiet neighborhood, safe, where our kids could grow up. And it's been that way. It's been an outstanding place to live. I do have some major concerns about noise that this might bring. I have some major concerns on strains of utilities, as has been mentioned. I also have concerns about foot traffic in and out of our neighborhood. I have concerns about police response to 72 additional house units that are going to be where we are, because I do believe that they are pretty busy right now with our current situation in our community. Noise pollution, traffic safety are my main concerns, in addition to the fact that we've worked for almost 20 years. Hey, we have a lot of equity in our home. This is our major investment, as Mr. Strudoff said, and it would absolutely devastate us if this was put in right next to our neighborhood. So I just respectfully request that you don't allow this zoning change, because it will permanently, in a negative way, alter the neighborhood and that we've all that are here have worked so hard for. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Herschel Kelly, and I live at 1201 Silverleaf Street. I've lived there since 2013, and I know this gentleman over here, and he is a very fine individual. I think the biggest thing is the residents really would like it to stay single-family area around them. It's too close to those single-family homes, and it'll affect so much. Utilities, roads, schools. I mean, the speed limit on Neville's Road is never observed. And the county road there that you gotta intersect with is 55 miles an hour. And at least once a year, you're gonna see skid marks off the ditch and the signs taken out and everything else. And there's been multiple times, like was mentioned, that you're coming up to make the turn on the Neville, and people don't see you because you're coming over that hill, and then you're coming around the curve coming from the school. So there has to be, if they feel like this is important, there's got to be a whole lot more done for the neighborhood. And if they sell 10 acres, the 20 acres off, it still needs to be single family. It doesn't need to be zoned where you're going to have additional apartments or anything else. As far as I'm concerned, yes, I'd like to have restaurants. I'd like to have everything else on north side. But we have a commercial area that ain't 4 or 5 miles from it that could be developed. You got Lowe's, all that down there. You got the frontage road down there that could be developed. So I think the real thing, like I said, is that if you're going to change the zoning, change it to single family. That will make the neighborhood stay intact. And you're still going to have to do, even if you do that, and they develop housing out there, you're going to have to get the utilities and the roads and all that fixed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mariela Crockett, 1001 Stone Shore Street. And again, I know you heard it over and over again about the traffic, but this is personal for me and my husband. Our daughter had a terrible wreck on Neville's Road. She was going to school one morning, and her car was totaled, and she survived. I don't know how, but well, we're Christians. We believe in God, and we pray for our kids every day. All the airbags went off. She had her seatbelt on, but it happened on that curve where it's marked 25 miles an hour, and nobody goes 25 miles an hour, and if they do slow down, it's really hard to stay on your lane when you're going on a curvy part of the road. And so the person that hit her was going in the middle of the road. She said the sun was in her eyes. She did not see my daughter come. So she was hit on the driver's side, and she's with us today. But every day we see, and there's been other wrecks there, we see bad instances. So I want you to know that not only the people that live at Sleepy Hollow and Silver Creek, Stonebriar and Silver Creek, we all converged onto Neville's Road, but also it's a shortcut for people that go from Green Hill Road to 1402 and vice versa. So those people are in a hurry. It's usually they're picking up their kids from school or going somewhere else. And so that's where the danger happens. I don't know how you fix that issue. When my daughter had the wreck, we tried to reach out for help, more lighting, lines, something, but this proposal is only going to aggravate that situation. And so we really, for me personally, ask you to please consider not approving this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just briefly, since the city council will ultimately make the decision next Tuesday night, if anybody here has not signed my petition, we can add names until then, so I'll be outside. Don't get out without.
Oh, okay. Thank you for listening to everyone's concern. About a little over a year ago, me and my husband decided that we would move to Silver Creek Addition because we could no longer take care of our property where we live. We wanted to move there because we felt like it was a safe haven. He was ill, and he knew that he would be leaving me alone. I'm a widow, and I feel very comfortable there. I feel very safe there, he passed away in December. And so I would just like to say, please consider that there's probably going to be more windows than just me there. And I am concerned about foot traffic if that's passed. And, you know, we just want a safe place for us and my grandchildren. Great-grandchildren live there. The kids ride their bicycles and play. And I don't think that would be possible if that is passed. Just consider that for us.
Thank you.
Rosita Peacock, Raytheda, Peacock, and 2717 Silver Spring Trail.
Josh Hammond, 322 County Road 3230. So from my understanding, if the whole 30 acres gets zoned for multifamily, 10 acres is 72 homes. Then the other 20 acres is going to be sold off. So technically, this could be up to 216 apartments. So something else to consider.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think everybody feels the same way that's in the audience. I mean, we can go on or we can take a vote. All right. Do I hear a motion? We'll close the public hearing. I'm sorry.
I'd like to make one comment just to correct and make sure the record is correct tonight. You referred to the housing addition on the south end being relatively new, and not many people here knew about that. I recognize Mr. Cross, Mr. Vineyard, the Honorable Tim Taylor, Mr. Hedges, and numerous others, and yes, we're old enough to remember that. That might not be a good thing, but it is a true thing. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. So do I, anybody want to make a motion about the zoning? All right, we closed the public session. So do I hear
I'll make a motion to disapprove.
Do I hear a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion failed. It's not zone multifamily. Will stay future development. Now we go down to the planning director's report. Y'all can stay here. This is exciting.
Yeah, I've got to make something up, make it exciting. Do you have any questions? I don't have anything to report.
Okay. All right. Nothing to report? All right. Then we'll go to adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye.